You may have heard me talk about finding trends within your content, but what does that mean exactly and how do you even do that? Well, in this episode, I want to share with you 8 ways to help you identify trends on your podcast to help you get more downloads and ultimately grow your podcast audience. I'm Yesenia Bocanegra, your video podcast and content creation coach, and this is Focus on the Podcast. I started this podcast in 2020 with the idea of sharing content to help other photographers market their business, specifically using video. So at the time, I started really creating content more towards video marketing and for photographers, but really for anybody who had a service-based business. Well, here's the thing. I wasn't really 100% clear on that niche or that audience because I myself wasn't 100% sure if photography was the thing that I was still going to do. This is right in the middle of the pandemic. I had already been thinking of pivoting, but I wasn't 100% sure. But you know, that phrase, start before you're ready. Well, I kind of went ahead and did that. I knew that I wanted to create something that will allow me the opportunity to teach. And at that time, I wasn't sure if it was going to be YouTube or something else. And then that's when I discovered podcasting and just fell in love with it and started creating my own podcast. So keeping in mind that the podcast has pivoted from its initial concept of video marketing to now video podcasting. And even though it's not super different, it's still a little bit away from photography marketing or marketing your business, marketing your photography business. So how can you identify any trends as you're pivoting your content, even trends if you already know the type of content that you're creating, to help you create more of that content that will help drive that engagement, help drive that growth that you want to see for your podcast? Well, number one is you want to analyze your episode performance. And this is something that you should be doing every month at the very least. So you want to look at the download numbers, listener engagement, any retention rates for each episode. And you want to identify what topics or formats are consistently performing better and which ones are not. So for example, if your solo episodes are performing better than your interviews episodes, if your longer episodes are doing better than your shorter, so maybe your shorter episodes are like at 100% or really high consumption rate, 100% would be really great. But even if it's like in the 60, 70, you may want to test out if you want to do a little bit of a longer type of content, if that's something that you've been pondering about. Little things like that. Those are simple ways in which you can look at your analytics and start identifying those trends. So number two, you want to track your listener feedback. So pay attention to any comments, any reviews, any emails, any social media interactions from your listeners whenever you're sharing a reel, sharing a post related to an episode, whenever you're talking about a story, whenever you share an email where you're promoting that particular episode. Gather all of that data and see if there is a trend within a particular type of content within your podcast. And that will give you an idea of what additional content you could create around that specific topic. Number three is you want to identify popular guests or contributors. So if you have any recurring guests or contributors on your podcast, take note of which episodes featuring them tend to attract more listeners. Consider reaching out to those guests for any future collaborations or explore similar topics with other experts within that area. So in my case, because my podcast started as a podcast dedicated to helping photographers market their business through video marketing, photographers was that key main audience that I had. So episodes like ones where I have other guests where they're talking about how to pivot from wedding photography to branding, or maybe how to build your associate team. Those are episodes that are performing really well. Maybe how do you start with stock photography? That's a really great episode that has been very popular. So that is an episode that is resonating with that photography audience, but it may not always resonate with the new audience that I want to reach out, which is the video podcasting audience or podcasting audience in general, which doesn't exclude photographers, but it's now open to more people. It's more open to service-based businesses who want to build a brand through their video and podcasting content. So with that in mind, keep an eye out for those episodes where you have guests and see how those are performing. Number four, you want to spot patterns in audience demographics. By this, I mean analyze the demographic data of your listeners if you have it available. Then look at trends in age, gender, location, and interest. Understanding your audience demographics can help you tailor your content to better meet their preferences and needs. When looking at your demographics, see if you can pair any type of the pillar content that you have for your podcast and then tailor it to that specific audience. Maybe that specific audience has a very common question, a very common pinpoint that can relate to the content that you share. And then that could be a really good way to bridge that connection between your content and that specific audience with those specific needs because you are looking at those demographics in your data. Number 5, review keywords. What you want to do here is check out any keywords that lead people to your podcast. What are the topics or keywords that are consistently appearing in these search terms? This could probably indicate any area of interest for your audience, and you may want to explore that a little bit more in creating your content. Number 6, you want to monitor social media engagement. Here, you want to track the engagement levels of your podcast related posts on social media, paying attention with those topics or announcements that you post and see how it generates any interest, any engagement, any likes, comments, even followers in your social media accounts. And then that could also give you potentially an idea of what type of content is resonating with your audience. And not just even that, it can even give you an idea of how you are best presenting your content. There's different ways in which you can promote your content for your podcast on specifically Instagram just alone. So what are you using to promote your content on Instagram, for example? And then how are people reacting to that? Are people reacting more when you're sharing stories? Are people reacting more when you're sharing a reel and then you have a call to action to DM you? All these little things can really give you an idea of, one, how your content is resonating with the audience, but two, how you can best promote your content. Number 7 is experiment and measure results. You always want to experiment because I think marketing is consistent experiment. If you don't try something, you don't know if it will work out. And once you've tried something, you want to look at those analytics to see what worked and what could be improved. And you do that over a period of time. So you want to look at your content at least every month and then every 90 days to see if there are any trends within the content. And that should give you an idea of what content you can create next. Number 8 is to stay up to date with industry news. You want to keep yourself informed about any developments and trends within your own industry or your niche. This can help you anticipate any topics that are likely to be of interest for your audience and can help you stay ahead of the curve with your content. So for instance, when YouTube launched their feature to be able to connect your RSS feed from your podcast host to your YouTube channel, that was an industry related news, which definitely brought lots of questions on not just how can you do this, but also should it be worth it for you to do this connection between your RSS feed and your YouTube channel, especially if you've already started creating video content? Well, I have actually an episode on that, which I'll link in the description and here if you're watching me on YouTube. But really, all of this is to say that regularly analyzing your podcast performance, engaging with your audience, and staying informed within the topics of your industry can really help you identify patterns, trends, and also ultimately help you create more content that will help drive that growth, that engagement, and help you succeed with your podcast. If you have any questions about launching your podcast or how to plan a strategy for your podcast show, check the link in the description so that you can check out my coaching sessions, and I'll see you on the next episode. Take care.